Good evening, dreamer, and welcome back to Dreamy Science Stories. I'm glad you're here. Wherever this day has carried you, you can gently set it down now. There's nothing you need to hold on to, nothing you need to solve. Tonight, your breath begins to slow, like a northern wind gliding over endless ice. In the distance, a pale blue light rests low in the sky, the sun hanging just above the horizon, never rushing, never fully leaving. The Arctic is not empty. It is not silent in the way of absence. It is silent in the way of deep listening. Ice whispers as it shifts. Snow settles with patience, measured in centuries. Time itself seems to move more slowly here, as if even the planet has chosen to rest. As you listen, allow your thoughts to thin and drift, like frost forming on clear air. If these quiet journeys bring you comfort, you're always welcome to gently like this story, share it with someone who needs a softer night, or leave a small comment below, a simple hello in the dark. And now, with nothing left to do, tonight we drift north. The Arctic is not a continent. This is often the first quiet surprise. There is no vast landmass waiting beneath the ice, no hidden mountain range stretching endlessly below the snow. Instead, the Arctic is an ocean, the smallest and shallowest of Earth's oceans, gently capped with floating ice. Beneath the frozen surface, dark seawater continues to move, to breathe, to carry warmth from faraway currents. The ice above is not anchored. It drifts. In this way, the Arctic is not fixed. It is a world that floats, a place where even the ground beneath you is slowly, patiently traveling. And as you begin to sense this, the Arctic already feels less like a destination and more like a state of being. The sea ice of the Arctic moves the way continents once did, slowly, silently, with immense patience. Massive sheets of ice drift across the ocean, guided by winds, tides, and subtle differences in temperature. They collide, separate, crack, and reunite. Not with violence, but with inevitability. Some ice travels thousands of kilometers over its lifetime. Some returns close to where it began. None of it stays truly still. From above, these frozen plates resemble pale, drifting maps. Borders form and dissolve. Passages open and close. It is tectonics without earthquakes. Geography without permanence. Here, even stability is temporary, and yet nothing feels rushed. The Arctic reflects sunlight like a vast, ancient mirror. Ice and snow bounce solar energy back into space, cooling the planet by design rather than intention. This reflectivity, called albedo, is one of the Arctic's quiet superpowers. When sunlight strikes the ice, much of it does not stay. It glides away, redirected upward, returning warmth to the sky. This reflection helps regulate Earth's temperature, preventing the planet from absorbing too much heat. Without it, the world would be warmer, less balanced, less calm. Standing here, wrapped in pale blue light, it feels as though the Arctic is watching the sun and gently, persistently asking it not to linger too long. In summer, the sun does not set. For weeks, Sometimes months, it circles the sky without ever dipping below the horizon. The light softens, changes color, stretches into long amber hours, but it never fully leaves. Time behaves differently under a sun that refuses to sleep. Days lose their edges. Night becomes a suggestion rather than a certainty. Plants grow quickly, taking advantage of every moment of brightness. Animals adjust their rhythms. Humans too feel their sense of time gently loosen. And yet, even under constant daylight, the Arctic never feels loud. The light is present, but it is not demanding. In winter, darkness arrives and stays. For long months, the sun does not rise at all. The sky holds only twilight hues and stars that feel unusually close. This darkness is not empty. It is layered, textured. Snow reflects moonlight. Ice glows faintly under the aurora. Shadows soften rather than sharpen. Life does not disappear, it slows. Metabolism drops. Movements become efficient. Energy is conserved as though the land itself has learned the art of resting deeply. In the Arctic night, stillness is not absence. It is preparation. The Arctic helps cool the entire planet. Cold air formed here sinks and spreads southward, influencing weather patterns far beyond the polar circle. Ocean currents exchange heat between hemispheres, with the Arctic acting as a thermal anchor. This region functions like Earth's quiet breathing system, inhaling warmth, exhaling cold. Without the Arctic, seasons elsewhere would blur. Storms would intensify. Heat would linger where it does not belong. The Arctic rarely announces its importance. It simply continues, cycle after cycle, maintaining balance through patience rather than force. The air in the Arctic is among the cleanest and driest on Earth. Far from cities and forests, with few sources of pollution or moisture, the atmosphere here feels almost empty. Each breath is light, crisp, uncluttered. Sounds travel differently in this air. Silence stretches farther. Distances feel deceptive. With fewer particles to scatter light, the sky appears sharper, deeper, more expansive. Stars shimmer with unusual clarity. Breathing here feels like breathing closer to the planet's original state, before industry, before noise, before urgency. The wind of the Arctic carries memory. It moves over open water, across ice fields, around pressure systems shaped by oceans thousands of kilometers away. Embedded within it are traces of distant seas, ancient evaporation, long journeys. This wind does not roar often. It whispers, slides, glides. It erases tracks quickly, reminding everything that nothing here is meant to last too visibly. Even presence is temporary. When the wind passes, it leaves behind a sense of continuity, as though the Arctic remembers where the air has been and where it will go next. Temperatures in the Arctic can fall dramatically, without storms. No thunder, no violent fronts, just a gradual, almost courteous withdrawal of heat. Air grows denser, snow crystals form with precision, cold settles in layers. The absence of chaos makes the cold feel different here. It is not aggressive. It is enveloping. This is cold that invites stillness rather than fear. Cold that encourages pause. Cold that teaches patience. The Arctic is one of the quietest places on Earth. Not silent, but profoundly hushed. There are no insects buzzing, few trees to rustle, little movement to interrupt the soundscape. What remains are subtle sounds, ice shifting far away, wind brushing snow, your own breathing becoming suddenly noticeable. In this quiet, thoughts slow, awareness expands. The Arctic does not demand attention, it allows it. And as this chapter closes, the world here remains vast, open and unhurried, a floating ocean of ice, light and breath, waiting for you to drift deeper. Ice in the Arctic is not lifeless. It does not simply exist as frozen water, waiting to melt or break apart. It grows, it ages, it remembers. Sea ice is born each winter as thin, fragile skin across the ocean's surface. At first, it bends with the waves, rising and falling like a slow breath. Over time, it thickens. Layers stack gently, one cold night at a time. In this way, ice behaves less like stone and more like a living structure, one that responds to pressure, light, and time. Sea ice has a lifespan. Some ice survives only a single season. It forms in autumn, drifts through winter, and disappears quietly in spring. This is called first-year ice, young, flexible, easily reshaped by wind and tide. Other ice lives longer. Multi-year ice survives the summer melt and returns for another winter. With each passing year, it grows thicker and stronger, losing air pockets and salt. It becomes denser, harder, more resistant. Like old trees in a forest, this ancient ice is rarer now. But when it appears, it carries authority, a sense of endurance shaped by many winters. Ice makes sound. Not the kind that demands attention, but the kind that reveals presence. As temperatures shift, ice expands and contracts. It cracks, groans, sighs. Sometimes it hums, a low vibration traveling through vast frozen fields. These sounds are not signs of danger. They are signs of movement, of adjustment. Scientists call this ice acoustics. Listeners call it haunting. The ice seems to breathe, exhaling tension as it rearranges itself. In the Arctic, even stillness has a voice. The blue color of ice is the color of time. Thick ice absorbs red wavelengths of light, allowing blue to pass through. The deeper the blue, the older and purer the ice. Young ice looks white and cloudy, filled with tiny bubbles of trapped air. Older ice appears clearer, denser, glowing softly from within. This blue is not decorative, it is a record. Each shade tells a story of pressure, freezing cycles, and slow compression. To stand near ancient ice is to stand near years made visible. Time here has a color, and it is calm. Multi-year ice can be as hard as stone. Compressed by years of freezing and thawing, it resists pressure in ways younger ice cannot. Ships avoid it. Waves bend around it. This hardness does not come from violence, but from patience, from staying intact through countless moments of stress. Like bone or coral or old wood, the strength of ice is cumulative. It is built quietly. In this way, Arctic ice teaches a gentle lesson. Endurance does not require force. Beneath the ice, an entire world exists. The underside of sea ice is textured, uneven, full of pockets and ridges. Algae grow there, clinging to the frozen ceiling of the ocean. These microscopic plants feed small creatures. Those creatures feed fish. Fish feed seals. Seals feed bears. All of this begins in the dim light below the ice, a hidden ecosystem suspended upside down. Even in darkness, life finds a surface to hold on to. New sea ice is salty. As seawater freezes, salt is pushed out, trapped briefly in brine channels within the ice. Over time, gravity and temperature cause this salt to drain away. Older ice becomes fresher, sweeter. In survival stories, people have melted ancient ice to drink. It carries less salt, less bitterness. Ice, like living tissue, changes composition as it ages, shedding what it no longer needs. Cracks in the ice are a language. They form when pressure builds, when currents pull in different directions, when temperatures shift too quickly. Each fracture follows invisible rules. Some cracks seal themselves again. Others widen into leads, long, dark ribbons of open water. To animals, these openings are pathways. To humans, they are messages. They speak of stress and release, of balance adjusting itself. The ice does not break without reason. It communicates through separation. Ice is always moving, even when it appears still. Drifting at a pace too slow to notice, entire fields shift daily. A kilometer here, a few meters there. Satellites track this motion from space, watching continents of ice wander silently across the Arctic Ocean. To stand on ice is to stand on something in transit, a surface that belongs neither fully to water nor to land. This movement is not hurried, it is inevitable. Every iceberg carries climate history. Formed from glaciers on land, icebergs break away and drift into the sea, carrying layers of compressed snowfall that fell thousands of years ago. Trapped inside are bubbles of ancient air, dust from distant deserts, ash from long-forgotten eruptions. Scientists read these layers like pages. They reconstruct temperatures, atmospheres, rhythms of Earth's past. An iceberg is not just frozen water. It is a drifting archive. When ice melts, it does not rush. It thins, it softens, it releases water drop by drop. Melting ice absorbs heat quietly, moderating its surroundings. It cools the air even as it disappears. There is no explosion, no collapse, just a gradual return to fluidity. In the Arctic, even endings are patient. And as this chapter settles, the ice continues its slow architecture, growing, shifting, remembering, holding time in place a little longer. In the Arctic, light rarely falls straight down. It arrives at an angle, sliding across ice, brushing snow, stretching shadows long and thin. The sun never climbs high overhead. It hovers, circles, glides. This slanted light softens everything it touches. Edges blur, distances feel uncertain. Under this light, the world appears calmer, as if even brightness has learned to move slowly. Nothing is sharply lit. Nothing is rushed into clarity. Here, light does not command attention. It simply stays. At certain times of year, sunset can last for hours. The sun drifts toward the horizon and lingers there, suspended between presence and absence. Colors unfold gradually. Gold fading into peach, peach into lavender, lavender into blue. There is no sudden nightfall, no moment you can point to and say, now it is gone. Instead, the sky breathes its way into darkness. Light dissolves rather than disappears. This extended twilight stretches the mind. Minutes feel longer, thoughts slow. The Arctic does not believe in abrupt endings. Even daylight leaves politely. The aurora does not glow evenly. It flickers, ripples, unfolds in waves that seem to think before they move. Curtains of green, violet, and pale white appear, vanish, then return in a different shape. No two displays are ever the same. The light is born far above the atmosphere, where charged particles meet Earth's magnetic field. There, energy becomes color. Yet from the ground, it feels less like physics and more like breathing sky. Auroras respond to the solar wind. Invisible streams of particles flow outward from the sun, crossing millions of kilometers of space. When they reach Earth, they are guided toward the poles by magnetic lines that curve gently into the atmosphere. As these particles collide with oxygen and nitrogen, light is released. Green from oxygen, red from higher altitudes, purple from nitrogen. The Arctic sky becomes a canvas for solar weather, a quiet conversation between star and planet. Storms on the sun echo softly here, arriving not as sound, but as color. The Arctic sky changes color with temperature. On the coldest days, the air grows dense and clear. Light scatters differently, tinting the horizon with deeper blues and sharper pastels. At slightly warmer temperatures, moisture enters the air, softening hues. The sky turns milky, pearlescent. Sometimes halos form around the sun or moon, luminous rings caused by ice crystals floating high above. Light bends, repeats itself. In the Arctic, the sky wears temperature like a mood. Subtle shifts create entirely new palettes. Snow reflects moonlight more strongly than sand. On clear nights, the ground glows. Moonlight bounces off countless snow crystals, scattering evenly across the landscape. Shadows soften. Darkness lifts slightly. Even without artificial light, the world remains visible. Quiet shapes emerging gently from silver-blue illumination. This reflection creates a sense of openness at night. Fear finds little place to settle. The dark is not heavy. In the Arctic, Night does not press downward, it spreads outward. Stars seem closer in the Arctic sky. With dry air, minimal pollution, and long periods of darkness, starlight travels unimpeded. The Milky Way appears textured, layered, almost three-dimensional. Stars do not twinkle as much here. They hold steady. Constellations feel intimate, as though the sky has leaned in slightly, as if distance has softened. Looking upward becomes a grounding act, rather than an overwhelming one. The universe feels vast, but not distant. Winter skies feel thicker. During the polar night, the atmosphere seems denser, more present. Light moves slowly through it. Sound carries farther. Without the sun's warming influence, layers of air settle gently, stacking like blankets. The sky feels closer to the ground. This thickness creates a sense of enclosure. The vastness above does not feel empty. It feels protective. The Arctic winter sky does not open endlessly. It rests. There are stories of auroras being heard. Soft crackles, faint whispers, a rustling like distant fabric. For centuries, indigenous observers described sound accompanying the lights. Modern science suggests electrical discharges near the ground may produce subtle noises under specific conditions. Whether rare or imagined, the idea remains gentle. That light could speak. Not loudly, not clearly, but just enough to be felt rather than understood. Arctic light slows the perception of time. Without sharp transitions between day and night, the mind loosens its grip on hours. Clocks feel less relevant. Schedules dissolve. Light stretches. Darkness lingers. Both invite patience. In this environment, awareness shifts inward. Moments feel wider. Thoughts move more softly. The Arctic does not measure time precisely. It allows it. And as this chapter fades, the sky above remains vast and calm. Light gliding gently across ice and stars holding steady, while time itself drifts quietly, unnoticed, unhurried. Now we drift beneath the ice. Above, the frozen surface remains pale and still. Below, the Arctic Ocean opens quietly, dark, vast, and patient. This descent is gentle. There is no sudden drop, no dramatic plunge. Light fades slowly. Sound changes texture. Here, the Arctic reveals another layer of itself. Not frozen, not empty, but moving softly in the dark. The Arctic Ocean is the smallest of Earth's oceans. Encircled by continents, it feels almost enclosed, more like a basin than a boundless expanse. And yet, its influence reaches far beyond its borders. Despite its size, this ocean plays an outsized role in regulating the planet. It exchanges water with the Atlantic and Pacific. It absorbs heat. It releases cold. From above, it may appear quiet and contained. From within, it is deeply connected, a subtle hub in Earth's global circulation. Small, but never insignificant. Near the surface, fresh water floats above salt water. Rivers from surrounding lands pour pour into the Arctic Ocean, carrying meltwater from snow and ice. This fresh water is lighter than the salty sea beneath it, forming a thin, delicate layer at the top. This stratification acts like a blanket. It slows mixing. It traps cold near the surface. As a result, ice forms more easily here than in many other oceans. The fresh water protects the cold, preserving the frozen world above. Even in fluid form, the Arctic practices restraint. Currents flowing through the Arctic influence the Gulf Stream. Cold, dense water formed here sinks and travels southward, becoming part of the global conveyor belt that circulates heat around the planet. This movement helps drive the Gulf Stream, a powerful current that carries warmth toward Europe, softening climates far from the poles. In this way, the Arctic quietly reaches into distant cities and forests. Its cold breath shapes weather patterns thousands of kilometers away. The Arctic does not announce this influence. It simply continues to flow. Sound travels farther in cold water. Low temperatures allow sound waves to move with less loss of energy. In the Arctic Ocean, a single noise can travel hundreds of kilometers. Whale calls echo across vast distances. Ice cracking can be heard far from its source. The ocean becomes an acoustic space, wide, resonant, attentive. For marine animals, sound is navigation, communication, memory. In darkness, hearing replaces sight. The Arctic Ocean listens as much as it speaks. The Arctic Ocean absorbs carbon dioxide. Cold water holds gases more effectively than warm water. As air and sea meet, carbon dioxide dissolves into the surface layers. This absorption helps slow the buildup of CO2 in the atmosphere. It moderates climate. It buffers change. But the process is slow and delicate. Too much absorption alters the chemistry of the water, affecting life below. Even here, balance matters. The Arctic absorbs quietly, but it cannot absorb endlessly. Under the ice, waves still move. Though the surface appears frozen and calm, energy travels beneath. Swell from distant storms passes silently through the water, flexing the ice from below. These movements are subtle, barely noticeable. Yet over time, they shape the underside of ice, carving ridges and hollows. The ocean never fully rests. Even beneath the frozen ceiling, motion continues, slow, rhythmic, persistent. Some Arctic waters never freeze. Warm currents flow into the region from the Atlantic, carrying heat northward. Where they rise closer to the surface, ice cannot form. These openings, known as polynyas, appear like dark windows in the ice. Steam rises. Birds gather. Life concentrates. They are breathing spaces, places where ocean and atmosphere remain in constant exchange. In a frozen world, these unfrozen waters feel alive, alert, quietly essential. Bioluminescent creatures glow beneath the ice. In the darkness below, some organisms produce their own light. Tiny flashes, soft glows. Plankton shimmer when disturbed. Jellyfish pulse gently. Fish carry faint points of blue or green. This light is chemical, not reflective. It costs energy, so it is used sparingly. Signals rather than displays. Whispers rather than announcements. In the Arctic Ocean, light exists, but only where it is needed. Pressure changes slowly here. The Arctic Ocean is relatively shallow compared to other oceans. Depth increases gradually without sudden plunges. As a result, pressure builds gently. Creatures move vertically without extreme transitions. This gradual change supports life adapted to subtle differences rather than sharp boundaries. Nothing is abrupt, nothing is forced. The Arctic Ocean does not rush organisms into extremes, it eases them downward. The Arctic Ocean moves as though it is sleeping. Currents drift slowly. Water masses shift over years, not days. Even large-scale circulation unfolds patiently, guided by temperature and salinity rather than storms. This slowness creates a sense of deep rest, a feeling that the ocean is aware, but unhurried. Here, motion is not urgency, it is continuity. And as this chapter settles, the Arctic Ocean remains beneath the ice, dark, breathing, gently connected to the rest of the planet, moving slowly, quietly, as if dreaming. Life in the Arctic tends to be large, not hurried, not crowded, but shaped by space, cold, and patience. Here, survival favors bodies that hold heat, movements that waste nothing, and rhythms that slow rather than rush. Energy is precious, motion is considered. The animals of the Arctic do not live loudly. They move through a world where every action has weight and every pause has purpose. Polar bears are not truly white. Their fur appears pale because each hair is transparent. Light passes through it, scattering softly, reflecting the colors of snow and sky. Beneath the fur, their skin is black, absorbing heat from the sun, even when sunlight is faint and angled low. This combination is elegant rather than extravagant. Nothing decorative, nothing wasted. The bear becomes part of its environment, not by blending in, but by working with light itself. The fur of a polar bear guides light. Each hollow hair acts like a tiny fiber optic tube, channeling sunlight toward the skin beneath. Even weak Arctic sun becomes useful. This design traps warmth while remaining lightweight. Insulation without bulk, protection without heaviness. The bear carries its warmth quietly, efficiently, like a moving shelter. In the Arctic, success does not come from speed. It comes from refinement. Seals can hear through ice. Sound travels differently in frozen environments. Vibrations pass through solid ice with surprising clarity. A seal resting beneath the surface can detect footsteps, cracks, or the movement of predators above. Listening replaces watching. This sensitivity allows seals to choose the safest breathing holes, to wait patiently, to surface only when the moment feels right. The ice is not a barrier to sound, it is a medium. Whales use sound to draw the shape of the ocean. In dark, cold water, vision fades quickly. Sound becomes the primary sense. Whales send out low-frequency calls that travel immense distances. These echoes return with information, depth, distance, texture. The ocean answers back. Through sound, whales map underwater mountains, locate companions, sense ice above. Their songs are not performances. They are conversations with space itself. The Arctic Ocean is heard before it is seen. Some Arctic fish live in water colder than freezing. Salt lowers the freezing point of seawater, allowing liquid existence below 0 degrees Celsius. But even so, the cold is extreme. Arctic fish survive by producing antifreeze proteins in their blood. These proteins prevent ice crystals from forming inside their bodies. Life adapts not by resisting cold, but by accommodating it. The fish move slowly, conserving energy, inhabiting a world where every chemical reaction must be carefully managed. Blubber is not only for warmth. This thick layer of fat stores energy, smooths buoyancy, and reduces drag in water. It allows animals to float effortlessly, to glide rather than struggle. Blubber also acts as insulation against sound and pressure, protecting internal organs during deep dives. In a place where food is seasonal and unpredictable, blubber is memory, a record of past abundance carried into leaner times. It is patience made physical. A whale's heart slows dramatically during a dive. As the animal descends, its heart rate drops, sometimes to just a few beats per minute. Blood flow is redirected to vital organs. Muscles switch to energy-saving modes. This response allows whales to remain underwater for long periods without stress or urgency. The body enters a state of controlled stillness, efficient, calm, focused. Even the heart learns to wait. Arctic animals waste almost no movement. Every step, every turn, every breath is measured. Chasing prey is rare. Waiting is common. A polar bear may stand still for hours beside a breathing hole. A fox listens before it leaps. A seal floats motionless, conserving warmth. In this environment, unnecessary motion is costly. Stillness is strength. The Arctic teaches its inhabitants to move only when movement matters. All Arctic life tends towards simplicity. Bodies are streamlined, colors are muted, behaviors are repetitive and refined. There is little room for excess, no space for ornamentation. Life here does not seek variety for its own sake. It seeks reliability. What works is repeated. What fails is forgotten. In this way, the Arctic becomes a place of distilled biology, life reduced to its most functional form. Life in the Arctic is never in a hurry. Growth is slow. Reproduction is timed carefully. Rest is abundant. Animals synchronize their lives with light, ice, and season rather than clocks. They wait for the right conditions. Nothing blooms prematurely. Nothing forces itself forward. Here, survival is not a race. It is a long conversation with cold, silence, and time. And as this chapter settles, the great animals of the Arctic continue their quiet existence, breathing slowly, moving carefully, living deliberately, as if the world itself has agreed to slow down with them. As we drift deeper into the Arctic, scale begins to change. The vast ice fields and slow-moving giants fade into the background. Attention narrows. Focus softens. Here, life becomes small, not insignificant, but intimate. In the cold, survival favors what can wait, what can pause, what can endure quietly. The Arctic is not only a land of large bodies and long shadows, it is also a place where entire worlds exist beyond the reach of the eye. Algae live inside the ice, threaded through frozen channels and tiny pockets of liquid water. Microscopic algae cling to the underside and interior of sea ice. They photosynthesize, using the faint light that filters through snow and ice. This light is weak, scattered, unreliable. Yet the algae persist. They form the foundation of Arctic food webs, feeding creatures too small to see, which in turn sustain larger life. All of it begins with a quiet green presence, suspended in frozen architecture. Even ice, it seems, is not empty. Snow has its own ecosystem. Fresh snow may look pristine and lifeless, but beneath its surface exists a delicate community. Bacteria, fungi, algae, and tiny invertebrates inhabit the spaces between snow crystals. These organisms feed on airborne particles, dust, pollen, organic debris, carried north by wind. They metabolize slowly, adapted to darkness and cold. The snowpack becomes a temporary shelter, insulating life from harsher conditions above and below. What appears as blank white is, in truth, softly inhabited. Some bacteria sleep for thousands of years. Frozen deep within ice cores and permafrost, ancient microorganisms remain dormant, preserved by cold and time. Their metabolism slows to near stillness. They do not age in the way warm organisms do. They wait. When conditions change, when ice melts or thaws, some awaken, resuming activity as if no centuries had passed. For them, time is not a river. It is a pause. The pink color sometimes seen on snow is alive. Often called watermelon snow, this blush appears when certain algae bloom near the surface. They produce pigments that protect them from ultraviolet radiation. The color absorbs warmth, causing the surrounding snow to melt slightly, creating more liquid water and more opportunity to grow. It is a feedback loop, gentle and self-sustaining. A soft stain of color quietly shaping the ice around it. A single drop of water can hold climate history. Within Arctic ice and meltwater are traces of past atmospheres, isotopes of oxygen and hydrogen that record temperature changes over millennia. Each droplet carries information about snowfall, evaporation, and global circulation at the moment it formed. Scientists read these ratios like a language, reconstructing climates long gone. Even at its smallest scale, water remembers. In the Arctic, life often adapts through stillness. Movement requires energy. Energy is scarce. Microorganisms slow their internal processes, reducing reactions to the minimum required to persist. Growth becomes optional. Maintenance becomes everything. This is not inactivity, it is restraint. Stillness becomes a survival strategy, a way of staying present without consuming the future. Ice can preserve ancient sound. As glaciers form, layers of snow compress, trapping tiny bubbles of air. These bubbles contain pressure patterns, remnants of wind, storms, atmospheric composition. While not sound in the audible sense, these trapped signatures represent echoes of ancient environments. Ice becomes an archive of motion long gone, a quiet memory bank sealed by cold. Microorganisms slow decomposition in the Arctic. Cold temperatures limit chemical reactions, including those that break down organic matter. As a result, remains persist longer. Plants, animals, even human artifacts. Microbes work slowly, carefully, extending the timeline of decay. The Arctic does not erase quickly, it holds. Preservation becomes the default state. The Arctic contains living dust, tiny particles, fragments of soil, spores, bacteria, drift through the atmosphere and settle onto snow and ice. This dust originates from deserts, forests, oceans far to the south. Carried by wind, it arrives quietly, almost unnoticed. Within it are seeds of life, dormant until conditions allow activity. Even the air delivers life in whispers. Even silence contains living presence. At the smallest scale, motion never fully stops. Molecules vibrate, cells maintain gradients, energy flows at minimal levels. The Arctic's quiet is not emptiness. It is balance held gently. In this stillness, life persists without announcing itself, existing not through expansion, but through endurance. And as this chapter comes to rest, the micro-worlds of the Arctic remain, breathing slowly, waiting patiently, alive within ice, snow, and silence, where even the quietest places are never truly alone. In the Arctic, time begins to loosen its grip. Seconds still pass. Days still follow nights when nights exist at all. But the urgency of time fades. Here, nothing insists on being immediate. Nothing asks to be finished quickly. The cold stretches moments, allowing them to settle. Thoughts slow. Awareness widens. In this place, time is not something you move through. It is something you rest inside. Ice is a storage vault for the atmosphere. As snow falls year after year, it captures tiny samples of the air itself. Each layer seals away a breath of the sky, preserved by cold, pressure, and patience. Oxygen, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, all trapped, unchanged, waiting. Ice cores drilled from Arctic glaciers reveal atmospheres from thousands of years ago. They show how the air once felt, how it moved, how it changed. The sky, it seems, never truly leaves. It simply sinks into the ice. Air bubbles inside ice are ancient breaths. Pressed deeper over time, snow transforms into ice, and the air between flakes becomes sealed into tiny spheres. Each bubble is a moment, a pause in the breathing of the planet. Some of these bubbles formed before cities existed, before agriculture, before memory was written down. When scientists release this trapped air, they are not just measuring gases. They are listening. The Arctic exhales the past softly, one bubble at a time. Layers of ice resemble the rings of a tree. Each year leaves its mark. Slightly different snow, slightly different chemistry, slightly different temperature. Thick layers form in cold years, thin ones in warmer seasons. Dark streaks reveal volcanic ash. Fine dust hints at distant winds. Like a forest giant, the ice records its own growth, not upward, but downward into time. You do not read ice from top to bottom, you descend into it. The Arctic holds Earth's memory, not selectively, not emotionally. It remembers everything equally. Storms and calm years, volcanic eruptions and quiet snowfall, warm centuries and cold ones. Nothing is judged, nothing is prioritized. The Arctic does not decide what matters. It simply keeps the record. In its stillness, the planet's long story remains intact, waiting to be gently uncovered. 1 meter of ice can contain thousands of years. What feels like a small distance to the body is an immense span to time. Within that single meter are countless winters layered together, compressed into silence. Each centimeter holds decades, each millimeter years. Time here does not stretch outward, it condenses. The Arctic teaches that magnitude is not always visible. Depth does not need space. Time in the Arctic is not linear. Past, present, and future overlap quietly. Ancient ice melts into modern water. Today's snow becomes tomorrow's archive. Future climates are written into layers forming now. There is no clear boundary between then and now, only continuity. Standing on the ice, you are not above history. You are inside it. The Arctic does not move forward in time. It circles within it. Ice records distant wildfires. Particles of soot and ash from fires thousands of kilometers away travel through the atmosphere and settle onto Arctic snow. Year after year, these dark flecks become embedded in ice layers. Long after forests regrow or vanish, their fires remain remembered in frozen form. The Arctic listens to the rest of the planet and writes down what it hears. Even events that never touch the ice leave their mark. Icebergs are drifting libraries. Born from glaciers on land, they carry layered snowfall accumulated over centuries. As they break away and drift into the ocean, they take this history with them. Each iceberg is a moving archive, pages of compressed time slowly melting into the sea. As they dissolve, their information spreads. Fresh water mixes with salt. Cold seeps into currents. The past does not vanish, it redistributes. Nothing melts without leaving a trace. When ice turns to water, it carries memory with it. Chemical signatures, isotopes, stories dissolved into motion. The shape disappears, the record does not. Water remembers where it has been. It remembers cold. It remembers pressure. Even loss becomes transformation. The Arctic remembers more than it reveals. Most of its history remains sealed, quiet, untouched. Only a fraction is ever read. The rest stays where it is, uninterpreted, unspoken. This is not secrecy, it is completeness. The Arctic does not need to explain itself. Its memory exists regardless of who listens. And as this chapter settles into stillness, the ice continues its quiet work, holding centuries gently, layer by layer, breath by breath, remembering the world longer than the world remembers itself. In the Arctic, human presence is light, not fragile, but gentle, not invisible, but never dominant. Footsteps fade quickly here. Tracks disappear with the next wind. Structures feel temporary, even when they stand for decades. The land does not shape itself around people. People shape themselves around the land. In this place, to exist comfortably is to exist lightly. Humans arrived in the Arctic late, long after ice had learned its rhythms, long after animals adapted their bodies to cold and dark, long after wind and water settled into quiet patterns. When people came north, they did not conquer the environment, they listened to it. They arrived without certainty, without maps drawn in advance. Knowledge grew slowly, carried by observation rather than instruction. The Arctic did not welcome newcomers loudly. It allowed them cautiously. Indigenous cultures move with the ice. Communities did not fix themselves permanently to one location. They followed seasons, animals, openings in the ice. Homes were designed to be assembled and released. Routes shifted year to year. This movement was not instability, it was alignment. By traveling with the ice rather than resisting it, people learned to remain part of a living system rather than an obstacle within it. Mobility became a form of respect. Silence is a survival skill in the Arctic. Noise wastes energy. Attention keeps you alive. Listening reveals weather before it arrives. Changes in wind tone, ice texture, snow density. Silence sharpens awareness. In this environment, quiet is not emptiness. It is information. Those who learn to be silent hear more than those who speak. The Arctic teaches energy conservation. Nothing is done without purpose. No movement without reason. Walking is measured. Tools are shared. Effort is planned. The body learns restraint. The mind follows. Where resources are limited, efficiency becomes instinct rather than choice. Energy is not something to spend. It is something to carry carefully. Open space allows the mind to rest. In the Arctic, there are few visual interruptions, no crowded horizons, no competing signals. The landscape offers distance rather than stimulation. This emptiness is not deprivation. It is relief. Thoughts slow when there is nothing to react to. Awareness widens when it is not constantly pulled. The Arctic offers mental quiet as generously as physical silence. People listen to the wind to orient themselves. Before compasses and instruments, direction was sensed through sound, temperature, and movement. Wind carried information about ice conditions, weather changes, and distance to open water. A shift in airflow could mean danger, or opportunity. Navigation became an embodied skill. The body learned to read space. Direction was not abstract, it was felt. Time is measured by light. Clocks are secondary here. Days lengthen or vanish. Seasons announce themselves through brightness rather than dates. Activity follows illumination. Rest follows darkness. This alignment softens urgency. Without rigid hours, time becomes environmental rather than imposed. Life flows with light, not against it. In the Arctic, everything has purpose. Objects are not decorative. Clothing is functional. Tools are multi-purpose. Excess adds weight. Weight costs energy. Nothing exists without reason. This economy of form extends beyond material culture. Speech is concise. Movement is intentional. Meaning is carried efficiently. There is nothing redundant. Each item, each action, each decision serves more than one role. A shelter blocks wind and reflects heat. A meal provides nourishment and warmth. A pause restores strength and awareness. The Arctic does not support excess. It gently discourages it. What remains is what matters. Humans are guests here. Not owners, not rulers. Visitors who must learn the rules of the house. The Arctic does not bend easily. It does not negotiate. It allows presence only through humility. Those who listen stay longer. Those who insist leave quickly. And as this chapter settles into quiet acceptance, human presence remains what it has always been here. Temporary, adaptable, careful. Like a soft footprint in snow, held briefly, then released back into silence. Change in the Arctic does not arrive loudly. There are no alarms here, no sudden breaks, no sharp edges. Instead, change settles in quietly. Like a shift in temperature you notice only after you have already adapted. The Arctic does not resist transformation. It absorbs it. And in that absorption, something subtle begins to feel different. The Arctic is warming faster than the rest of the planet. This is not a rush of heat, but a steady accumulation. Cold retreats gently, 1 degree at a time. Because ice reflects sunlight, even small losses matter. Less reflection means more absorption. More absorption means more warmth. This feedback loop is calm, efficient, and persistent. The Arctic does not argue with physics. It responds. Thinner ice changes the soundscape. When ice grows thinner, it flexes more easily. Cracks travel farther. Waves transmit energy differently. Sounds once muffled now carry farther and sharper. The ocean speaks more clearly to the ice above. Animals listen and adjust, so does the land. Sound becomes one of the first signals that something has shifted. Less ice reflects less light. Where once sunlight bounced harmlessly back into space, it now lingers in darkened water. The surface grows more absorptive. The balance tilts. This change is not dramatic to the eye. It is measured in percentages, not colors. Yet, over time, it alters temperature, circulation, and season. Light, once deflected, now stays. Some changes cannot be reversed. Ice that melts too thin cannot reform in the same way. Ecosystems altered beyond certain thresholds reorganize rather than return. This is not tragedy, it is process. The Arctic does not grieve its former state, it transitions. Understanding this does not require alarm, only attention. The Arctic responds first, because it is sensitive, because it is exposed. Changes that will take decades to appear elsewhere are already present here. Shifts in timing, in texture, in rhythm. The Arctic acts as an early listener, absorbing global signals and translating them into subtle adjustments. It does not warn loudly, it demonstrates quietly. Animals adjust their pace. Migration timing shifts slightly. Hunting windows change. Rest periods stretch or compress. There is no panic. Adaptation begins with observation. Animals do not rush to correct the future. They respond to the present. The Arctic teaches adjustment through patience rather than urgency. The ocean absorbs more heat. As ice retreats, open water expands. Dark surfaces take in warmth. This heat is stored, not released immediately. It lingers beneath the surface, reshaping currents slowly. The ocean becomes a reservoir of memory, holding warmth long after the sun has gone. Even in winter, traces remain. Silence is changing, not disappearing, but shifting. Ice that once dampened sound grows thinner. Open water carries noise differently. The Arctic does not become loud, it becomes less muted. This change is subtle, perceptible only to those who listen carefully. Quiet is still present, but its texture has altered. The Arctic signals change by whispering, in timing, in thickness, in reflection. There are no declarations, only patterns. Those who pay attention notice earlier. Those who do not still feel it eventually. The Arctic does not demand response. It offers information. Change here is slow, measured in seasons, in decades, in layers. There is time to notice, time to understand. The Arctic does not collapse, it evolves. And as this chapter settles into its quiet tone, the Arctic continues to change. Softly, gradually, without drama. Speaking not in warnings, but in whispers carried across ice, water, and light. The Arctic continues to exist in silence. Not as an absence, but as a presence that does not announce itself. Nothing here asks to be noticed. Nothing insists on meaning. The Arctic simply remains, wide, pale, and patient. In this stillness, existence feels complete without explanation. When ice melts, it does not make a loud sound. There is no crash, no breaking cry. The transition from solid to liquid happens softly, grain by grain, drop by drop. Heat is absorbed, edges blur. The ice does not resist its change. It allows itself to soften, quietly returning to water. Even transformation here is gentle. Snow falls almost without sound. Each crystal descends slowly, finding its place among countless others. There is no impact, only accumulation. Snow absorbs noise, smoothing the world as it settles. Footsteps disappear, distances blur. With every layer, the land becomes quieter. The Arctic listens as snow arrives, and then becomes even more silent. Open space lightens the mind. With no walls to confine the horizon, thoughts drift freely. The eye travels far without interruption. The body relaxes into stillness. There is nothing to process quickly, nothing demanding reaction. In this openness, the mind releases its grip. Attention softens. The Arctic does not fill space. It clears it. The sun hangs low but does not warm. Its light spreads gently across ice and snow, touching without heating. Brightness exists without intensity, presence without pressure. The sun feels distant, almost polite. It offers visibility, not comfort. In the Arctic, light does not promise warmth. It simply exists. Time moves like ice, not fast, not linear. It drifts, pauses, accumulates. Moments stack quietly, compressing into something denser than memory. There is no urgency to move forward, no need to catch up. Time, here, is not something to manage. It is something to float within. The Arctic does not resist. It does not fight wind or cold or darkness. It receives what arrives. Ice forms, ice melts. Light comes, light leaves. There is no struggle visible in the landscape, only response. Acceptance becomes the natural state. Everything here allows movement. Not rapid movement, not forceful motion, but gentle shifting. Ice drifts, water circulates, air slides quietly across open space. Nothing is fixed forever, nothing demands permanence. The Arctic does not hold tightly, it releases slowly. Quiet is the natural condition, not something achieved, not something protected, simply the baseline. Sound exists, but it is sparse. Motion happens, but it is restrained. Stillness does not need to be created here. It already is. The Arctic is still sleeping. Not dormant, not empty, resting, breathing slowly beneath ice and sky, dreaming in long cycles of light and dark. It does not hurry toward waking. It does not fear change. It sleeps the way it always has, deeply, patiently, without expectation. And as this final chapter settles, there is nothing left to follow, nothing left to learn. Only the quiet remains. You do not need to hold it. You can rest now. There is nothing you need to remember from this journey. Nothing to hold on to, nothing to carry forward. The Arctic does not ask to be understood. It continues exactly as it is, whether you are listening or already drifting away. As your eyes grow heavier, the ice remains where it has always been, floating quietly, breathing slowly, holding its pale blue light beneath the open sky. Your breath begins to match the rhythm of the north, in and out, softly, like wind passing over snow. Somewhere far away, Ice shifts without sound. Snow settles without weight. The ocean moves beneath a frozen surface, patient and calm. You don't need to follow it. You don't need to stay awake for it. The Arctic will continue through the night, through the dark, through the light, through seasons that unfold at their own gentle pace. Let the last image rest with you now, a wide, unmoving field of ice, washed in faint blue glow, the sky low and endless above it. Nothing changes quickly here. Nothing needs attention. If tonight happens to be a night of quiet celebration, if soft lights glow somewhere in the distance, then let this stillness hold you gently. From Dreamy Science Stories, wishing you a peaceful heart, a resting mind. Merry Christmas and good night.